Hi, I'm Bill, and welcome to episode 2 of my Forever World. OBS continues to not like actually recording my voice in the game at the same time, so this is going to be another voiceover only episode. Today I'm going to be collecting some of the newish plants that were introduced back into Spring to Life, then doing a bit of work on a road leading up to my cherry custom village. Let's get started. So, off camera, I've been doing some more work on the fields around my starter house and storage building, mainly putting in a new field of roses. I wanted the roses to seem a bit more bushy and overgrown than the in-game models make them look, so I interspersed patches of leaves amongst them to give them a little more volume. Overall, I'm pretty happy with how it looks, and I think that the fields near my base are very close to be done, though they still need some more around them for me to be completely satisfied. So this left me with 3 items on my metaphorical shopping list for this episode. Wildflowers, bushes, and the firefly bush. Even though I think that the fallen leaves definitely have uses, and I want to try some stuff in the future with them, they can be crafted using leaf blocks and don't need to be found in the world. And while happy gas are extremely cool, and I absolutely want to try using them in the future, I also already have Elytra in this world, and I also want to make a build for the happy gas to live in first. Thankfully, I didn't actually need to travel very far to get what I wanted. Apparently, the most recent chunk pruning I did included some of the forest and river chunks close to my base. So there was newly generated territory in the biomes I needed, really close to everything else I was doing. I got a sample of the wildflowers to bone meal later, and then went about grabbing as many firefly bushes as I could find. I also grabbed a bunch of bushes since at the time I couldn't remember whether you could bone meal them to get more. It turns out after checking the wiki that you can. I then headed back to my base to work on my actual project for this episode. So while past me works on this road, I'm going to ramble a bit about my process for how I make roads and try to make them make sense with both the terrain and with the idea that someone would actually be using them to travel to places. My first step is to dig out a trench where I want the road to go. I try to make it not too steep, typically at most half a block vertical or horizontal block. Basically, I like not having to jump to get up a hill, and that's about the grade that lets me do that. Sometimes this involves having to do a bit of terraforming to get the hill to be the slope I want it to be, but other times I use switchbacks to make it work. This time was a bit of both, since the hill I was working with was both large and steep. After I get a good plan for where I want my road to go, I go back through with the blocks I'm using to make the road and fill the trench in. This time I went with a mix of birch and endstone in order to go with the pallet I was using for the roads near my storage. I also did a second pass to get all the birch slabs in, since I wanted to make sure I had enough of the planks for the flat sections of the road before I cut them into slabs. Next step, bridges. Since I wanted the train to slowly transition from the fields at the bottom of the hill to more rocky and crystally top of the hill, with their accompanying light versus dark color palettes, I decided to have the lower bridge match the bridge on the bottom, while the other bridge would use more of the dark basalts and deep plates seen in the village. And that will be seen in the top of the mountain's terrain once I get to doing more terraforming there. There isn't really a ton to say about the lower bridge. I mostly followed the same design as the existing bridge, with a little bit of a diagonal added in. With the upper bridge, I used deep slate bricks for the bottom and cobbled deep plate for the top. It kind of made the bottom of the bridge feel sturdier and the top feel more work done. After a quick detour to my amethyst geode, where I broke a budding amethyst, whoops, I also added some small crystal buds to the bottom of the bridge. Kind of like the crystal in the mountain was accumulating on the bridge because of the water splashing against it. Or something like that. I thought it looked cool. I'm probably going to add some lights to the bridge, but since I'm not entirely sure what I want the lights for the whole road to look like, I decided to hold off for now. Next step was making some of the high dirt cliffs that I had made while terraforming also make a bit more sense. I decided to do that by adding retaining walls. After debating between basalt and polished basalt, I decided to go with the latter, mixed in with some regular basalt to show where the wall is a bit more aged. I added a layer of deep slate bricks to the top, then filled in the terrain around the walls. I also added some bushes at the bottom of each of the walls. They kind of help break up the blank wall face a bit more, even on top of the details I've added with the normal basalt. And I think adding in foliage where it makes sense is a good way of making boring builds look more interesting. I'm not completely done with the area near the road, but since a lot of what I wanted to do is going to intersect a lot with what I'm planning for the terrain around the road, that is where I decided to leave it for this episode. I hope you enjoyed watching and have a great day.